Mysticism by Emma Curtis Hopkins. Chapter 6, Understanding. This sixth study is a lesson in invocation. It is well to know what we are invoking. Whatsoever we desire, we are invoking it, and sooner or later it arrives upon us. Let a man draw himself to himself, and leaving all else choose what he will, and so it shall be unto him. Chapter 6, Understanding. As a bar of iron gains magnetic virtue by being placed for a time in a special position, so it has been uppinned, particles of matter arranged and long continued in a certain posture may eventually become surcharged with life. As natural phenomena are mysteriously symbolic of mystical realities, we can understand by the bar of iron and the particles of matter how it came to pass that the inspirationally taught theophori of old discovered that the inner vision of man, oft-time giving attention to Ein Sof, the great countenance of the Absolute, would charge man with transfiguring newness of divine life in plain manifestation. Great promises have been caught by awakening watchers toward the vast, vast countenance of him who exalteth by his power, none teaching like him. Look unto me and live. Seek ye my face and live. I give life to the faint, and I will reveal unto them the abundance of peace and truth. Take a wide, wide view of the vast, vast. He giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not. Upbraiding and stinting hail not from him. Not life, but the cause that life is. Not spirit, but the cause that spirit is. The oldest science in the world is the mystical science. It came to primordial man from the Tao over the Tao, while wistfully uplooking toward the wooing heights for some direction on his seemingly inscrutable life path. Whatever came to primordial man concerning his relationship to the high eternal first cause, he called inspiration, as it seemed to come along with his inward breathing. The inspiration of the Almighty giveth them understanding, he said. Hesiod, poor, despised, lonely, felt the wooing of some higher influence, and called it spirit, or breath of heaven, and he found a new school of poetry, with something like the power of thrice 10,000 spirits round our pathway gliding, rewarding some with glory, some with gold, as the key teaching of his successful school. Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of the Jordan River to commemorate the dividing of the waters by heavenly influence, where the feet of the priests, bearing the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth, stood firm, rewarding the Hebrews with what Hesiod's poetry would call glory. The miracle-working unseen has been the glad theme of inspired men before Joshua and Hesiod. They all taught that a great unseen world swings close to this world, an imperishable world, whose substance is Zeus, or Brahma, or Ra, or God, or Gaia, who sprang from chaos, or Sima, the queen of heaven, to whom the Hebrew women offered cakes and worshipping incense in the streets of Jerusalem. Jeremiah was angry with the women for not calling the ruling other world that swings so close to this world Jehovah. But the women said that they had plenty of victuals, and had been well, and had seen no evil, while worshipping the Queen of Heaven, the nourishing Sima, and they would not call the miracle-working highest one Jehovah. The breath of the unseen world was in the refreshing winds that hailed from above the primordial men as they bared their heads and purposely inbreathed the ether winds, subtler than earth's common atmospheres, which to this day wait actionless for man's inbreathing action. Breathe toward me heavenly breath, till all this breathing form of me quickens with breath divine. Father John of Russia felt the stirring of a breath full of curative elixirs, quickening the bread and wine of the Eucharist. He cited cases of bodily healing while partaking of these ether-charged elements. Certain names of old were reputed to liberate the healing elixirs, biding forever within the air as we daily breathe, never noting their mystic offers. Why, O man, will ye die, having power to partake of the breath of immortality? Even watchers toward the winds that make forecasts for coastwise shippings and aerial flyings declare that there is one wind that comes from above, which always fetches reviving. It is the northwest wind, but to them that seek all their good from above, every wind contains over-breaths of willing revivings, or buoyant ethers of renewal. Ezekiel called for all the four winds to breathe forth their secret vitalizings, that the multitude of dead in the Seir Valley might quicken through all their earthbound forms. The cradle doctrine of the New Age is, Thou God seest me, for I also have looked after him that seeth me, as it was the cradle doctrine of earliest Hebrew prophetics, announcing the coming together of aristocracy and serfdom in the Christ above the pairs of opposites, rich and poor, bond and free. Every man's hand has been against Ishmael the bond-child, and Ishmael's hand has been against every man. Yet Ishmael's cradle instruction was, Thou God seest me. And the Ishmael type did find a great nation and placed 12 principles in the earth whose determinations are with us to this day. And Isaac, the aristocracy of the world, with the same father Abraham that the bond-child owned, though he has held the world in fee, must with the serf begin again. Thou God seest me, for I also have looked after him that seeth me, that the time of their warfare may be shortened according to the Christian decree. Abraham their father looked for a city which hath foundations, and sought the wooing unseen by looking up and hearing the voice of the light of the city, saying, The land thou seest, to thee will I give it. Why should serfdom and aristocracy fight for land, or houses, or precedence, when all that belongs to either of them they may inherit by lifting up their eyes to the world that swings close, whose miracle-working winds may at any time waft in miraculous new prosperings? The spider taketh hold with her hands, and is in kings' palaces, says Solomon, speaking for those who seek their highest best by highest watch. By so many roots as the marsh grass sends in the sod, I will heartily lay me a hold of the greatness of God, the miracle-working God. Mystical science brings the close-swinging, miracle-working uplands to our attention with perpetual urgings. To bad and good among us it declares the same. Lift up your eyes to the fields, white for the harvest. If we keep off the world's fighting ground of good and evil in thought and conduct, the clinches of its estimates of what is good have no yea in us, and its estimate of what is evil find in us no agreement. Visioning toward the same country Abraham was seeking, we swing in with the miracle-working heights. The land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, whispers its unceasing voice. Honor and fortune exist for him who remembers that he is in the neighborhood of the great, wrote the truth-announcing Emerson, keeping step in a mystical moment with Moses, the God-taught lawgiver, and Ezra, the inspired reformer. Millions perished marching toward the holy sepulchre to take possession of it. Where was their inward watch? Remember that we always look toward an object before thinking it, and it is by having oft recourse by inner viewing that then the mind goes on to know and comprehend. and the body, obedient follower, to show the concrete thereof. Who on earth was there to teach the pilgrims and crusaders, sepulchre-ward inward viewing, that there was another country smiling over their heads, whose giving was prospering, unsepultured, joyous life? He of highest vision rises highest even among the sons of earth, Samuel said. I am the seer, and he went forth to choose a king for Judah and Israel. Jesse of Bethlehem, Judah, was the greatest man among the Hebrews, and his sons the finest specimens of Judean manhood. Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah were marched before the seer. One had a genius for war, one a genius for statecraft, one for language. What a wonderful gift is language. If your language were right, you would be the desideratum of kings' courts. You would stop the warfare between Isaac and Ishmael, capital and labor, rich and poor. Samuel Johnson, uncouth, untidy, ragged, held the young peers of Oxford spellbound with his speech, and the masters gave him larger freedom of action than his confreres, because his words cut swaths like polished scythes. Dejmal Pasha ruled the Turkish Empire with his speech. The world awaits its master of brotherhood cohering words. A right word, how good it is! Who can measure the force of a right word? But the Lord said to Samuel, no, not one of these for king of Judah and Israel. For the one with genius for war has inner vision toward men to marshal them for martial triumphs. The one with genius for statecraft has his inner viewing set toward men to place them as heads of tribes and territories. And the one with genius for compelling speech is observant of men's swaying emotions under his spellbinding oratory. Now their youngest brother David took not much note of men. Mine eyes are ever toward the Lord, he said, for he shall pluck my feet out of the net. Not what he himself did, but what the Lord on high was doing, was David's aspiration. And the seer anointed David with kingship, and he was the greatest warrior on earth, the greatest statesman, the most victory-awakening speaker. The Lord hear thee in the day of trouble. The name of the God of Jacob defend thee. Send thee help from the sanctuary, and strengthen thee out of Zion, was his national rallying cry. In the time of the World War, one nation shouted, we are ready to sacrifice 75,000 men any day. And it was soon recorded that the nation had sacrificed more men in proportion to those sent forth to battlefront than any other nation engaged in the great conflict. What should that nation have shouted? We are ready any day to forward an army to the triumph of our righteous cause. Why should they have called the attention of our globe to sacrifice? Are we not soon showing forth that to which our inner gaze is directed? Sepulture 1000 A.D. or sacrifice 1917 A.D. Who shall rouse the world to choose the sepulture and sacrifice undoing high watch? Nothing shall by any means defeat us, lifting up our eyes oft time to thee. Elisha was engaged at Joash, king of Israel, for not smiting the earth with his arrow 5 or 6 times, instead of only 3 times, when Joash was told by Elisha to smite the earth with his arrow. For 5 stands for successful labor, and 6 stands for laborless success, or the miracle of the highest ever moving hitherward. The hyacinth bulb planted topside down labors desperately to bloom Chinaward, and succeeds in making an anemic blossom, pale and small, but plain imitation of itself as it would be facing the sunshine and ambrosial morning airs. What does the downward-looking hyacinth know of its own sun-facing, unanemic, wide-spreading beauty. So we have never seen a man of the laborless supernal order, facing the sun of righteousness with healing in his wings, till the new dispensation gave us its good news when he came toward us, and inspired full victory, or the laborless miracle, was Elisha's hope for Joash. But Joash had only 3 small victories over Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, enemy of Jehovah, as his 3 arrow smitings prefigured, wide indeed of the mark of the high success his royal might claim. I will fetch my knowledge from afar, said Elihu, youngest of Job's advisers. Behold, God exalteth by his power. Who teacheth like him? He sealeth instruction while man slumbereth in his bed. He openeth the ears in the night time. Remember to magnify his work, that men may behold it afar off. The more we look to Ein Sof, the great countenance of the Absolute, the origin of knowing, the more we know of the influence of the close-swinging, miracle-working world in its finished beneficence. Listen, O isles, unto me, and hearken, ye people, from far. I will show thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. Solomon got him to the myrrh mountains of wisdom, for the mystical daybreak, and to the hills of frankincense, for the streams of healing hailing from above the sunrise. Beyond the margins of the mind supernal, wisdom waits. Over the day spring of a glory from above, the heaven's mysterious healings are distilling for those who obey the mandate. Lift up your eyes, look unto me. I am the Lord that healeth thee. The greatest doctrine announced by the voice of inspiration is that a mighty one onlooketh us, wooing ever as, what wilt thou? Ask what ye will. Is anything too hard for me? Who of us, uplooking, answers face to face as a man talketh with his brother? Who of us holds high converse with the ruler in the heavens? Who saith, to him that ordereth his conversation aright will I show salvation? In ancient mythology, the 6th god was Cronus, god of the harvest, with 2 faces, one glowing white and one glooming dark, according as he set himself to harvest from the heights above or from the depths below. When the giants got 6-toed from earthbound attention, they were destroyed. When the man of Galilee touched the 6-step throne place by daily converse, with what David called the glory above the heavens, such imagine effulgence gleamed forth from him, that multitudes coming unto him, he healed them, every one. We are all harvesting according to our inward viewings. Why are ye troubled, and why do thoughts arise in your hearts? Asked Jesus. We had to wait for the birth of Hegel, 1770 A.D., before we got the scientific answer to that question. We always look toward an object before thinking it, wrote Hegel, and it is by having off recourse by inward viewing that then the mind goes on to know and comprehend. High mysticism is not a science of right thinking or right conduct. These are strenuous labors. High mysticism is the call to look up to what the Kabbalah of Jewry named Ein Sof, the great countenance of the Absolute, who ordereth thoughts and speech and conduct anew. Behold, I make all things new, he saith. I will return unto that people a new language. They shall speak with new tongues. The speech of man always declares where his inward viewing, laden with harvestings for life conditions, oftenest alights. The good woman mentions the shiftlessness, the sorrows, the sufferings of her neighbors, and she has some unpleasantness of body and of affairs, formulated by the inward gazing her verbal descriptions betray. Is it not written that the wages of sin, or aberrated vision, is death? Mysticism is not a science of goodness and badness of conduct. It is the science of that which harvests as good or bad conduct. It is the science of the genesis of conduct and the genesis of thoughts. Secret viewings compose their own speech, rouse their own emotions, and formulate their own actions. Our initial and compelling faculty is our inner vision. Vision often Godward and live anew. So shall the body be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, whose leaf fadeth not. Vision often Godward, so that affairs also may go well. Gaze often toward our Father, and all thoughts shall be like morning music. Lift up an inward looking now and then to a country whose ether winds ever rain forth their healing aura, are fleet remedials for all the world's unhappiness. Does not Dr. Jowett record that Bishop Westcott of Durham was a man of royal strength from gazing toward the glory of the highest? How did he know there was a highest to gaze toward? How did he know there was any glory to harvest from his royal strength of mind and body? What was he gazing with? The kings of Tyre wore the sardius stone, sixth stone of revelation, to signify that they had caught a threefold luster by invocation. The sixth stone of revelation is the luster sardius, symbol of invocation. By physical invocation, the body may renew with the subtle elixirs that wait to mill within it to strengthen and uplift. The hills open in the daytime and at night pinch into themselves the circumambient vitalizings with which the daytime airs are charged. Then they bring forth grass and herbs and grain for cattle. The brain of man can open and close into itself the wisdom elixirs that hug it down like Sibyl's hoods. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. There is no part of the body that may not open and endraw the subtler than air stimulants that would soon burst forth as strength. This is physical invocation. The mind is surrounded by distant knowledges that it may endraw by asking of awaiting knowings, and burst forth with answers as from unseen teachers. This is mental invocation. The sardius stone stands for mental invocation. The luster sardius stands for mystical invocation, the way to know new things from the heights above the margins of the mind, where things hitherto untaught lie waiting are mystical invocation. Pythagoras said that there are magic mighty syllables making up an ineffable name, key to the mysteries of the universe. Speak them as into upper ethers where the hitherto unknowns abide, and they will mill hitherward with new knowledges. The ineffable name is key to the mysteries of the universe. The Parsees called the magic syllables so equipped with drawing power the Ardai Varaf name, full of revealings. And the throne had 6 steps, and I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book. Every man's name is the book of his equipment, and the use he has made of his name constitutes the influence of his name, or its spirit, or its ghost. Would we not expect that he whose vision had lifted highest, and whose invocations had brought him to highest harvestings, would shed the strongest and best influence, or spirit, or ghost, by the calling of his name? He who sat upon the throne with the book in his right hand announced to all the world, the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things. Surely the magic name for which Pythagoras was seeking to reveal to him the secrets of the universe must be concealed in the name promised to reveal all things by invocation. From its breathing forth power, the Parsees might have taught the wisdom wafts their longing aspirations forecast. I wept much, said John the Revelator, because the world went on so long without noticing that some names are like alabaster boxes of empowering ointment. Break them open by invoking them, and mysterious new influences awake through body and mind and environments. Paul wrote to the Ephesians that revelations would be vouchsafed by the acknowledgement of Jesus Christ, and the eyes of man's understanding should open to know the hope they may entertain from the calling of him that hath put all things under his feet, with name above every name that is named, not only in this world, but also in that which is to come. The one insistence of the Jesus who was Christ, with the fullness of the Godhead bodily, was that his name sheds forth fresh life. My words are life. I came that ye might have life. I am the living bread. He that eateth me, even he shall live by me. Tennyson wrote that 'tis life, more life for which we pant. But he did not tell us how to get more life. Only the Christ Jesus man ever told mankind how to quicken anew with the life of which our nerves are scant. And he declared that his name would stir the ether breaths of the unseen eternal world to inbreathe with our inbreathing, as the ancients called the names of mighty warriors and wise saints, and drew toward themselves their influential vigors. There is no science of wealth or health so great as the science of in-breath, was the conclusion of the ancients. And 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads, said John, which means that the right number to stir the world shall have cognizance of awakening spirit, or Holy Ghost, or healing winds, or God breath from heaven that the name of the Lord of life conveys. O hither wafting breath of strength, there is a heaven-taught way of reaping. Shall we know less about invocation than the Greeks and Romans of old, calling, O Mercury, grant me magistral to poverty. O Morpheus, come with celestial soporifics. Invocation is the greatest efficiency of prayer. Did not the voice of far past inspiration declare that the name of deity transcends prayer? Jesus of Nazareth called the overlooking deity Father. At the crucifixion he cried, Father, forgive them,